It's time now for the Sports Objective Podcast. No talking heads, just guys who love sports. Here's Dave Richmond.
Welcome into the Sports Objective Podcast. It's hard to believe, middle of the week now for this week. It's Wednesday when we're recording this. Bubba Rosenbaum, what's up, dude?
Not a whole lot. Hopefully the College World Series will be able to resume action today after rain wreaked havoc with things on Tuesday.
Nothing like baseball and rain. We're not used to that in Greenville. But anyway, that's the way it goes. It's part of the game. Unfortunately, it's the weather, the inclement weather. But the good news about this podcast, no matter what the weather is, you're always going to be able to get us. And Bubba, man, I appreciate you and Kyle very much. I don't say that enough, but I was thinking about that again this morning, getting ready about the fact that how far we've come for people that are just joining us, listening for the first time. We started in March 2018, the podcast. I thought it was going to be another broadcast partner who, unfortunately, Father's Day passed away a year. It's hard to believe it's been a year ago that our other host, Dave Shepard, he'll always be a host on this show, a co-host, and he passed away. And then you guys came permanently on the show July 1st. We're approaching that date, and I was thinking about that. We're all, as a team, three-man team, we've almost been together for a year.
Yeah, hard to believe that it's been a year. I really wish I'd have had the opportunity to meet Dave Shepard. With him, obviously being a friend of yours and then being a Pirate, and I know we would have had a lot in common, and I'm sure we would have been instant friends, so to speak. But yeah, I hate that everything that transpired with that situation. But I know Dave is very proud of where the show has come in the last year.
Oh, no doubt. You know, the funny thing is that he knew about, obviously, both of you. He liked both of you. He thought the show was going great. Obviously, he didn't get a chance to hear all three of us. He died, obviously, a couple weeks before we were able to start the new thing. But the great thing about Dave is I know he's with us. I know that he's looking down. He's very proud of us, like you're saying. I know that there's kind of like that, the angel, if you will. He's looking over this podcast because, Bubba, I just want to say this. Thank you so much to all the listeners. We're growing and growing and growing, and we are getting we're almost halfway there to being a professional podcast. And if you'd have told me that when we started March 1st of 2018, I would have said there's no way. Like my wife calls me a dreamer. I'm always big ideas, this, that, and the other. But I just want to say that I'm very humbled and grateful and appreciative, and I want to send my gratitude out to all the people that listen to this podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much to all of our listeners on whatever platform you listen on. The YouTube platform is one that's really grown in the recent weeks. We already have near 1,400 listens this month on YouTube, but whatever platform you listen on, we greatly appreciate it if you can subscribe, if you write us a review, let us know what you think about the show, and thank you again so much for listening.
No doubt, and we just want to, I always want to say that, Bubba, so I forget. And also, speaking of gratitude, I want to mention this real quick, Bubba. I forgot to tell you about this. But as you know, Bubba, last week, my great son, Alexander, was at the basketball camp, not good but great in Wilson. Anthony Atkinson Jr., who won the Barton National Championship, Barton College, the Division II National Championship in 2007. He's been with the Harlem Globetrotters for 12 years. I just want to let everybody know he's retiring from, I didn't get a chance to tell you that last week. He's retiring from the Globetrotters. He wants to spend more time with his two boys and wife at home, his great wife, Lauren, and they have two great boys. And he actually took the men's boys varsity basketball coach. He accepted that position at Wilson Prep Academy. Very happy for him. And I just want to personally thank him for all that he's done for Alexander, who's tremendously grown. You know, Bubba and I always joke off the podcast that our lives are so similar with our wives, and we have, I have three kids, but he has two, and they're the two youngest kids I have are closer in age to Bubba's kids, but they were tremendous with Alexander last week. They start kids at 4 years old. Most camps for basketball, for those that know, are 6 years old. So I want to give a shout-out to Anthony, and hopefully at some point we can get him, now that his schedule is better, we can get him on the podcast.
Yeah, he'll be a cool guest for sure. A lot of folks have watched the Harlem Globetrotters down through the years. Of course, now, exactly how long have the Globetrotters been in existence? Do you know right offhand?
Oh, my gosh. It would have to be – I do, and now you put me on the spot. I want to say something rings a bell like the 30s. I'll have to look at it. Maybe.
Right, yeah, I was thinking it was
it's way
70,
back.
80 years or something, yeah.
Yeah,
but
I know,
it
may be longer than that, but I know it's been – like when I was born in the 70s, they've been around a good while. And so now I'm getting old at 46 years of age. So they've been around, it has to be 80 years plus, I would think.
Yeah, I know back when I was in middle school and in the mid-'90s, we had the opportunity to watch the Globetrotters at Lawrence Joel Veterans Memorial Coliseum there in Winston-Salem. So it was certainly an enjoyable experience. And as far as Anthony Atkinson goes, kind of a neat story before we move into some of our other topics. I had the opportunity to be in Wilson that day when they were returning home from winning that D2 national title back in 2007. A family friend of ours played baseball for Barton. So after that doubleheader wrapped up, we headed over to, I guess, what's that, Raleigh Road there?
Yeah.
And then that main drag back into town. And so when they were rolling down Raleigh Road on the team buses, several hundred fans were out there ringing cowbells and just making all kinds of noise and showing their support for the Division II national champions. And so that's something that was a very cool experience that I didn't expect to be able to take part in. I just happened to be in the right place at the right time, and that's something that I have on my personal YouTube channel from 12 years ago, so we'll put that on our social media.
Oh, that'd be cool.
And but diving into some of these other topics, one of the big things that's been a pressing issue and really a need for East Carolina athletics in recent years is a training table, which we have kind of a makeshift training table now, and then we needed a director of sports nutrition, and now we have one in Christina Parrish. She was recently hired in the last week or so, and she has experience from Purdue, also UVA, and Rutgers. So it's nice to have Christina Parrish on board.
No doubt about it, and it's something that, what's funny is when we started this podcast, you never know how much you're going to learn. And, Bubba, the three of us have talked off the air a lot, and some on the air about how much we've learned about the program. You think you know a lot about ECU and the athletics and all, and then you find out how much you really don't know when you do a podcast. And I thought that was something that I just took that for granted. I thought that was something we're already doing, a no-brainer. So the kudos again to John Gilbert, Ryan Robinson, the whole staff. We have a lot of friends there at Ward and the Ward building, and I'm just really impressed. I say it every podcast, but I sincerely mean it. I know they listen to the podcast. And let me just say, we don't get paid by East Carolina. We're an independent podcast and show. However, when things are going well, we're going to tell you when they're going well. When they're not going so well, we're going to tell you when they're not going well. And we want to make those distinctions. And Kyle, I know, unfortunately couldn't be with us today. He's working, but I know he would say the same thing. We want things to be right at East Carolina. And, man, 2019 has been awesome.
Yeah, love the start of the John Gilbert era, and then also we've had Ryan Robinson on the show, so look forward to having those two guys back in the weeks and months to come as football season is quickly approaching.
Yeah, we have a lot of people that we're working out the schedules right now, but a lot of we're hoping to, for example, have CC Buford. We're going to work that out, and Coach Houston and Coach Dooley. We're working out schedules with everybody, and hopefully they can come on sometime this summer. I know there's a lot of things going on and different things, but we look forward to having them on. And I just want to say welcome to Christina Parrish. We're very excited about having her. I think I hate to use the term because people overuse it, but I do think it's a brand new day. I do think it's a brand new era. I think that the Pirate Nation, Bubba, I want to say this real quick and we'll move on. When people found out I was doing a podcast, and that we were talking to East Carolina, I don't think they realize how great and how big Pirate Nation, I'm just talking about friends, family, people that don't know the program like we do. But the reason why our podcast has been successful is the tremendous fan base we have with East Carolina and Pirate Nation.
Yeah, Pirate Nation, like you often hear, is certainly one of a kind. It's our passion and our fan base size, rather, is not as large as some of those out there. Like you hear Coach Godwin always say, like LSU and some of those fan bases. But there's no one that surpasses our passion. That's for sure.
No doubt. I know that. Again, congratulations for her getting the job. I know this is a new era. Mike Houston has really put a rubber stamp. And folks, I'm telling you, we're going to be doing a lot of, I want to say this real quick too, we're going to be doing a lot of preseason stuff looking, as we already have, about the football seasons around the corner and all different kinds of stuff with basketball, different things. But I'm telling you folks, if you're not excited to be a Pirate right now, I don't know when you ever would. Check your pulse, because this summer and beyond is going to be unbelievable. And I just think we've got a lot of good things with all three sports coming out. With the major sports, revenue sports, and then non-revenue sports are doing well. And I can't wait.
Yeah, we really do. And speaking of those other revenue sports, in addition to football, we wanted to talk about the schedule for men's basketball was unveiled. And I say the schedule, the American Athletic Conference schedule, because we're still waiting on those non-conference games to be finalized later this summer or early fall. But as far as the conference schedule, we have 7 opponents that will be playing home and away, and those 7 opponents are UCF. Johnny Dawkins' club had such an excellent season, and they do.
Oh, yeah.
They do lose a decent amount off that team, but you can still expect them to be strong. You also have Cincinnati, USF, SMU, Temple, Tulane, and Tulsa. So those 7 teams, the Pirates will play in Minges Coliseum and then also on the road. And then at home only, we will be facing the Yukon Huskies. So Danny Hurley's club will be making another trip to Minges after visiting Williams Arena in the final home game of last season. And then also Kelvin Sampson and the Houston Cougars, who made the run to the Sweet 16 this year. They'll be visiting. And then away games only, you'll be taking on Penny Hardaway and the Memphis Tigers out in the FedEx Forum, and then you'll also make the trip out to Wichita State to take on the Shocker.
Yeah, it looks like some of the big programs we're going to just play. Maybe that's a good thing just to play one time. But the scheduling gods, I think they were good to us. And I'll tell you what, we'll make a quick point and we'll move on. But the basketball schedule, definitely favorable. I know Sam Anderson has been piling up. I want to give him a shout-out for Hoist the Colors. He does a tremendous, kind of like the right-hand man and one of the men that helps out Stephen Igo from hoistthecolors.net. He's been putting together a non-conference schedule, what he knows, games he's been hearing. So if you're a Hoist the Colors member, or if you're not, please join. What are you waiting for? Sam Anderson, I know on the message boards, has put a non-conference schedule of dates and teams he's already heard to add to that. And I know, Bubba, we got to keep moving.
Yeah, that's what some of those non-conference games that you mentioned. I know VMI. I believe that may be the opener, but that's certainly one of the home games. And then also Charlotte. Charlotte should be visiting Williams Arena, Minges Coliseum after the Pirates were over here at Halton Arena a year ago. But that home non-conference schedule and just non-conference schedule as a whole, it's one that is still going to be leaving something to be desired, and part of that, there are a couple of factors that you have to take into consideration. One, like Coach Dooley has said, our poor RPI. Not many people are willing to go on the road to play a team that has the RPI that we have, and then you also have just the fact that the American Athletic Conference doesn't like you to play that many road non-conference games, so that limits us as well.
Really does, but the good news is it's growing pains. This conference deserves to be a power conference. You know how much I hate that term. But the good news is the program as far as basketball, that's the missing link. If we ever wanted to be in a power conference, if the American doesn't work out to be a power conference, men's basketball, even if you're a football fan, pull hard for Coach Dooley, pull hard for the basketball team. That's the missing link if we ever want to get in the big power conference. But I know we want to talk some baseball now, Bubba, and very happy with Cliff Godwin. Just want to give he's one of my heroes. I'm being serious when I say that. All three of our coaches, but this particular case with baseball. And I know he talked about on Pirate Radio, PRL, he talked about the schedule, right, for conference, non-conference.
Yes, an excellent interview on Tuesday afternoon on PRL with Troy D and Cliff Godwin. So definitely go back and check that out if you've not already had the opportunity to do so. And Cliff, one of the topics he touched on was the schedule for 2020. So next year's Keith LeClair Classic will feature Ole Miss. So that's awesome news to have an SEC opponent coming in, and that's not surprising. That's something I had heard a while back, but had not been confirmed. In addition to Ole Miss, you also have home and home matchups in the midweek with North Carolina for each of the next 2 years, and UNC Wilmington home and home next season, and kind of a different twist on the UNC Wilmington series. And I'm not sure, I haven't had the opportunity to actually hear the interview myself yet, so I don't know if this is going to be a weekend series where you have a third game in Zebulon, Kinston, or Fayetteville.
Kind of like the UNC series.
Yeah, it could be kind of like that 2018 UNC series where you had the third game at the DBAP. So we're strongly considering and trying to work out those details for a third matchup with the Seahawks next year, and be it a third midweek game or maybe the weekend series, which would be a cool addition of things since those two programs typically meet during the midweek. Something else, in addition to baseball scheduling, Alec Burleson has been named to 5 different All-American teams as a first-team member. So that's just remarkable, and he, of course, was named in the utility position with all the different roles that he served in. So very proud of Alec. And then also he was named a third-team academic All-American, as he has a 3.95 GPA. I believe he's either majoring in business or information systems technology or something along those lines. I mixed he and Jake Agnos up.
Yeah, and anyway, I can tell you, no matter what you major in, people can talk what they want to have a 3.95, and to think about all that they go through, it's just amazing. We'll be talking to Ben Upton in a little bit, and I know we'll talk to him about that, about scheduling, and as far as a college baseball player and what they had to go through with all the travel. But kudos to him. Bubba, you got to like our chances for next year for Omaha. We're definitely going to be a regional, certainly probably a super regional team. I really like our chances. And that dude right there, I don't care what you say, he gives us the best chance. I really believe that. And there's no question he'll only be here one more year. And but we're going to enjoy every second of it, right?
Yeah, we certainly lose some key pieces in Jake Agnos and then Brick and Pack, Evan Volova, Sam Lanier, Jake Washer. We certainly have pieces that we will have to have guys step up in those positions. But when you're recruiting at the level that Coach Godwin and his staff are recruiting at, you expect those things and you plan for them. And so I fully expect us to be contending for a conference title and regional berth, hopefully a hosting spot in 2020. But now, before we can catch up with Ben Upton, we actually had the opportunity to catch up with someone that's very familiar with Pirate Nation, get a quick hit interview with her as she is out in Omaha. And I'm talking about Audrey LeClair, the daughter of Keith LeClair. She is out there with her mother, Lynn, and then also Coach George Whitfield. And let's go to that interview with Audrey right now.
Well, it's nothing like Omaha and the College World Series. And, Bubba, we actually have somebody on the line right now that's in Omaha, right?
Yeah, we do. Unfortunately, the Pirates came up just a little bit short this year after the Super Regional round. But we're very excited to be joined by Audrey LeClair. Audrey, welcome in.
Thank you so much, guys, for having me.
Absolutely. We saw those pictures on Facebook over the weekend, and just think a lot of, as you know, Bubba and I are many in Pirate Nation that love your dad and will always love your dad for what he meant to the university and the program of baseball. And just want to get your thoughts. How many times have you been to Omaha, and what's this year like?
So this is my second time being in Omaha. I went back in 2013 as a high school graduation gift. That's what I wanted to do. A lot has changed in 6 years. For me, getting here was not easy, though. Our flight was canceled, and so we missed our connecting flight in Charlotte. They didn't have another flight until the next day. We wouldn't get in Omaha until 4 o'clock. We would have missed the Michigan game. So Mom and I just decided, you know what, we're going to drive. So we got in the car. We drove 17 hours, hit gravel roads in Iowa because the highway was closed from flooding. Everywhere we stopped, there were other people going to the College World Series. We met Mississippi State fans, Arkansas fans, Auburn fans, all along the way. Anytime we stopped, somebody was going to the College World Series. So that was neat. But it's just incredible to be here. The city's buzzing. There's just a ton of things to do, and of course a lot of baseball to watch. So it's pretty great.
Yes, it is. And I know Bubba and I had talked about we didn't plan anything as far as like we were superstitious. We didn't want to like plan hotels and that kind of thing, and we didn't want to buy plane tickets if we were not going and all that kind of stuff. And so we told each other that, hey, we want to make sure that we can get out for a few days. It's like, hey, I may bum a ride with you and then fly back or something like that. But I ended up, it was not to be. But I just want to get your feeling about how is it when you have two former players, like when you have or actually three former players with Eric Backage and you have Nick Schnabel, and then you have on the other side for UCLA back in the Super Regionals, you have Bryant Ward. That's got to be tough to watch those two teams playing, knowing that there's great coaches on both sides.
It was tough, but it kind of made us smile to know that there was going to be a 23, no matter the outcome of the games. We were in Louisville at the Super Regional, actually watching those games at night into the early morning, supporting all of them. But I just know Dad's extremely proud of Cliff and the season that ECU had, Brian at UCLA and the incredible season they had, and then you have Eric and Nick who've made it here, and not only did they make it here, but they're competing their tails off. So it's been pretty great, and I know he's smiling, and I know he's so proud of all of them.
As far as Eric Backage is concerned, the head coach of Michigan, so I know he was recognized as National Coach of the Year, so that's something that was very neat to see.
Yes, and we actually found that out right before the game started. His mom looked over and said, Eric was just named National Coach of the Year. And it almost kind of made you bring tears to your eyes sitting there in the stadium. It was my second time being in the stadium, Mom's first. And just to even hear that and, after the season they've had, being the last four in, and here they are, and he's National Coach of the Year. So
something else that was very cool regarding Eric was the quote that was going viral on social media. Quote he made regarding the players that he likes to recruit at Michigan, talking about how they don't necessarily gear things towards the showcase ball and travel ball. They like to find good athletes and give inner city kids and so forth an opportunity. So I know your dad was smiling down on that.
Definitely, especially just knowing that they're out there recruiting tough kids that want to play, may not get the opportunities to play, but are just all-around athletes on the field.
What's great is he even talked about your dad in an article I read and how they know they know a lot about your dad and they're at Michigan, and they even have what they call, what is it, Bubba, the LeClair 300s? Where they're actually running.
I'm sorry, you broke up, Dave. You said, okay. I heard you talking about an award there at Michigan.
No, I was talking about how that they wrote an article about Eric Backage, and he talked a lot about Coach LeClair, and they even know a lot about Coach LeClair and even about the LeClair 300s. Right.
Yeah, that's what I remember reading that article, and like you were saying, just pretty remarkable when you look at the imprint and impact, I should say, that your dad had, and having four of his former players in the Super Regionals this year.
Yes, it is quite incredible.
What about can you talk about let's talk about you. The first time you went there, you said there was changes in Omaha. So for those of us that have never been, I'm not going, and Bubba knows this. He feels the same way. I'm happy there's Pirates like yourself out there and people out there supporting the university and that have ties to East Carolina. But Bubba and I are not going until we make it because we want it to be our school.
Yes. When I came the first time, I was 18 years old, just graduated high school. I stayed close to just the stadium. My hotel was near the stadium. I walked to the stadium with the person that I was with, and we didn't really venture out. We just kind of stayed in our bubble near the stadium, the Fan Fest, Omaha Village, all of that. And then I've come back this year. We stayed a little outside near the University of Nebraska, Omaha. And the town's just incredible. There's restaurants, there's trails to walk and run, different ice cream shops. So I've gotten to explore a little more this year. We're actually going to the zoo tomorrow, so we'll get to see that side of it. And I believe Eric and Nick's kids are going to go with us, so that'll be fun. And we are, of course, with Coach George Whitfield, so he is giving us his own little tour along the way of his favorite restaurants and things to do. So especially with Michigan winning, we've gotten a few more days to go out and explore. So that's been kind of nice.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And when I know we go, that's the thing that I have to schedule way in advance. And I'm like, should I take the time off? Should I not take the time off working at the hospital in Greenville? And it's really tough because we have to schedule at least 6 weeks in advance. And I just like, it's just one of those things you don't know. I can't, we're short people right now. So it's like, if I take the time off and then we don't go, but anyway, I know that we're, East Carolina's going, and with your dad, like I said, last time I was talking to you and your mom, that's the really the first time I ever believed in going to Omaha was with your dad. And I'm glad that we have 2 number 23s there, former players of East Carolina. And I know I can tell you from back here home in North Carolina, Bubba and I and Kyle, all 3 of us are pulling so hard for Michigan. I never thought I would say that, but we're pulling hard for Michigan right now.
I know. When Michigan's not playing, we are in our ECU stuff. So we are representing ECU, and then we have to switch gears towards Michigan. But we are so proud to be with Michigan right now and support them. But we have not left our Pirate roots. We are supporting them throughout Omaha.
And Audrey, a very close family friend of mine, a guy that I grew up with, he and his dad, who played college baseball back in the 70s at App State, the 2 of them made their first trip out there this year, and they're still in Omaha. And he just said, if you have the opportunity to go, he said, you have to go. He said, I'm a huge college basketball fan. He has a certain team, Duke, that he pulls for, and he said, I don't care if Duke was in the Final Four, that I would still rather go to Omaha. That's how awesome this experience is.
It truly is, and I really feel that everybody needs to experience it in one way or another. You don't see any better baseball played throughout the season. Every game that we've been to, not only Michigan, we've actually gone to the Vanderbilt game quite a bit. We're going later this afternoon to that game. But you're hard-pressed to find better baseball played than you are here. Just the atmosphere and the people and the excitement, you can just feel the excitement. And just even the people you meet along the way that just, you kind of have that common connection. And it's a one-of-a-kind experience for sure.
Audrey, I wanted to ask you, as far as you have a little bit more personal connection with Eric and Nick, how are they handling, I can't imagine the atmosphere there. Are they handling things well? I guess best they can. I guess they just take it just like your dad would probably tell them, having that mental toughness. It's like just like another baseball game.
Yes, I think based on what I've seen, the boys are playing loose. You know, the coaches are just excited. They're still expecting them to be tough. They are getting better every day. I know they're preaching that because they have, you know, allotted practice times every day, and they still know that they have room for improvement before the next game. But they're just excited. They're being pulled in a lot of different directions. But from what I can see, they're enjoying the ride.
And that's probably the best way. There's a lot of the Vanderbilts, the Mississippi States, those teams, for example, are used to being there. I guess for Nick and Eric, it's like they have to play loose, because if you've never been there, you don't know what it's like. So
Right.
they don't know they don't know to be nervous, or and definitely with like you were saying, playing loose. How long are you guys staying for the full duration, or how long are you going to be in Omaha?
We drove a rental car out here. We haven't decided a date to be back. We're just kind of taking it like the guys are, game by game, day by day. So we will see, but we're definitely here through Friday, and we will see after Friday what our plans will be.
Well, I hope that we can, as Bubba and I have been so excited that we have a group text with the three of us, not only about the show, but certainly fandom, if you will, and we're so excited for Eric and Nick. It's just a great experience, and it was very painful for those of us that love East Carolina, but it's great to know that we have guys that play for East Carolina that are doing an excellent job of coaching, and we're really proud of them. And again, it means a lot for you to come on with us, and please give your best to your mom, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the time in Omaha.
I definitely will. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you very much, Audrey. She is just such a delight, and I guess the way she was raised by her mom and dad, and just really proud of her, and thank her for so much. She's really been supportive of the podcast and just gracious with her time, and it just overwhelms me with joy to know that she's out there Father's Day, and then certainly supporting Eric Backage and Nick Schnabel. I'm so excited, and like I said in the interview, I'm pulling hard for Michigan because of those two guys, and I never thought I would say I'd be pulling for Big Blue, but hey, that's what it's all about. Stranger things have happened, right, Bubba?
Yeah, it's one of those things. Down through the years, I certainly have not been a Michigan fan by any stretch of the imagination, but as you often hear, and when it comes to relationships and just
right.
program ties like Eric Backage and Nick Schnabel have to not only Cliff Godwin, but Coach LeClair in East Carolina. Got to pull for those guys. There's only a couple schools, and I think most of our listeners probably know the schools that I'm referencing, so I'm not even going to go there, that even if I had a relationship tie, I'd find it very, very hard to pull for those two institutions and programs. But I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to go there, but I'm glad that you kind of alluded to it, and we'll just time constraints is perfect so that we don't have to talk more about that. I know we got another great guest, Bubba. I'm excited about how our schedules, he's been wanting to come on. We wanted to have him on, and between our schedules, it was like herding cats. So I'm glad that we could all, both parties, if you will, both podcasts could come together and do an interview.
Yeah, really tried to get this guy on back during the season. When the Pirates are still playing, that is, because obviously the season's still going on as we're in the heart of the CWS out there in Omaha. So really not a bad time at all to have this guy on as he is preparing to make his initial trip to Omaha. And I'm talking about Ben Upton. Ben, as well as with his fellow co-host, which we'll talk about in this interview. Ben is the co-host of the 11.7 podcast, of course, a reference to the number of scholarships that Division I baseball has. So let's go to that interview right now with the co-host of the 11.7 podcast, Ben Upton.
It's baseball season, obviously, still going on with the College World Series. And, of course, when it comes to baseball, Bubba, just like a lot of sports, you and I are sports nuts. We can talk sports anytime, right?
Yeah, now we're very excited to be joined by Ben Upton. Ben is the co-host of the 11.7 podcast, a podcast that launched back in February of this year. So we're going to catch up with him about that. Ben, welcome into the show.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Welcome in, Ben. Wanted to congratulate you. A great Bubba and I are like podcast nerds. We listen to, obviously, more than just our podcast and love the podcast very much. Can you, before we get into background of you, can you tell everybody how you got started with the podcast?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's really simple. Our story is we were just two former college baseball players that kind of felt the need that there was, there's something missing in the college baseball market, and that is, a little bit of unfiltered, college baseball content that it kind of gets, a little bit more of personality involved and entertainment involved. And James and I, we grew up together. We were best friends since 8 years old. We ended up playing at 2 different colleges. He played at Longwood University up in Virginia. I played at Mercer University down in Georgia. And we felt like our experiences kind of blended well together. And we felt like we had a story to tell for the fans, give a different perspective on the game. And started from 0 followers in February and kind of just built it from the ground up, and felt like we did a good job this year kind of telling the story of college baseball from a different perspective than, stats and numbers and, draft possibilities. It's more of just like locker room talk. And it's really fun if you guys haven't listened to it yet. I'm trying to make – I know you guys have, but I'm talking to, like, your listeners. It's just something a little bit different than what you're used to for college baseball.
And that's what's so exciting about podcasts is the very fact that I really believe the podcasting community, Ben, just like we're doing right now, you guys have a great podcast. We're trying really hard. And I know the podcasting community is a tight-knit group. I know it sounds corny to say, but I love the fact that the people are very supportive of each other. And I come from a radio background, and it's very cutthroat. It feels this is the most excited I've been about a project ever.
Oh, you're absolutely right. And another good thing about podcasting is it's so new that we don't know exactly where this is going to go, but it's
right.
so easy and cheap to start up, and it's just like a place where you get to be yourself and kind of tell your own story versus radio. Because I've done color commentating for college baseball games last year, and it was just like there felt like so much pressure. You felt you had to be so buttoned up and straightforward, and one mess up and you're done. Podcasting is your own game. Like, it's something that everybody gets to do it their own way, and I think that is why like the podcasting community is so tight knit, because we're just people just doing our own thing. There's no pressure on us. I love it.
And I think also, Bubba, you can chime in too. I think it's funny because I think that we are, I use the cliche, but we are like the redheaded stepchild when it comes to the media. The people locally are great to us, but people don't know like what to do with us. Like, what are y'all? What is a podcast? And that's one of the things that we have to do is educate people about podcasting and how to get that. And we've used social media in all kinds of ways to get people to listen to the podcast.
Yeah, no, we are kind of the outliers because podcasters do a little bit of like social media blogging. They do a little bit of reporting, but it's mostly just storytelling. And if you really break down society as a whole, everybody just wants storytelling, and it's just a different form of a way to get information in a relaxed setting. Like, you can listen to a podcast and watch a video at the same time, or you can listen to a podcast and drive. You can't watch a video and drive at the same time.
Right.
You can't read a book and drive at the same time. It's just something that you can. It's kind of like your sidekick. A podcast is something that allows you to, gather information and also do something else at the same time. So we are outliers and stepchilds of the media, but we are very important in my opinion.
And I think that's great. I think that's why the people, and it sounds like not self-serving for us, but it's actually like we're giving the people what they want. You don't have to worry about a lot of commercials. If you have commercials in your podcast, you don't have to worry about they actually get to hear, like when we're talking to you right now, I don't have to say, hold on, Ben, can you stay with us? We'll be back in just a few minutes right here.
Right.
So we can talk to you as long as, you want to talk to us. So that's what's a lot of fun. I wanted to ask you now, as far as baseball, do you have like some takeaways for this year? I know that locally with East Carolina, we were obviously gut punch disappointed. However, it was a tremendous season. It just hurts when you have a special team and you have a special team and a great program. If we did not have a special team, it wouldn't matter, but people care so much about the program here locally in the Greenville, North Carolina area, plus Pirate Nation. So were you able to follow East Carolina?
Yeah, no. East Carolina was kind of one of they were like one of 3 teams that James and I followed exclusively this year because we felt like East Carolina had the right mold of good veteran talent that has proven itself not only at East Carolina but summer ball as well. We had Jake Kuchmaner on our show for like a 20-minute interview after his perfect game this year. We also all know Jake Agnos pretty well. He plays on the Greek national team with our producer Dimitri, or played, I guess it was 2 summers ago with him there.
Oh,
and
wow,
then,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I got to know him a little bit last year when he played for Team USA. And then I played against a lot of those guys my senior year. We made a trip up to East Carolina at Mercer, and
that's right.
Just guys being guys, talking to each other before games and after games, and the weight room the Thursday we got there before the weekend series. So East Carolina was one of those teams that we followed pretty well, especially during the conference tournament and regional play. And then, the Super Regional obviously didn't go the way you guys wanted it to, but I still think that you guys were a top 10 team in the nation from start to finish. The talent there was up to par with anybody else in the nation, and that was something really cool to see from not a Power 5 conference. But I will say this: East Carolina's they got robbed because Alec Burleson should have won the John Olerud two-way Player of the Year, and I am still fired up that I know Aaron Shunk had a good season, but he didn't do what Alec Burleson did this season, and that's something that I will hold over forever. I'm not even an East Carolina fan. I just love college baseball, and that really hurt. That was kind of like a stab in the chest. I was like, man, Burleson deserves that a little bit more than Shunk did.
And Bubba can tell you, right, Bubba, that we're used to. I remember a couple years ago in football when Zay Jones, he should have won the wide receiver award instead.
The Biletnikoff award. They definitely got robbed when it came to the Biletnikoff award. But yeah, I was thinking the same thing that you are, Ben. I really felt like Burley should have won the John Olerud award for sure. But that's not surprising that he didn't, like Dave's saying. But it's funny that you said you were on that 2017 Mercer team that made its way up to Clark LeClair and swept the Pirates. Y'all had a heck of a team. That was a brutal weekend. We were actually there celebrating one of my close friends. We had his kind of his bachelor weekend, and that was a rough one. We spent more time with the way some of those games are going. We spent some time doing some other things, but after those games turned ugly. But it was kind of a ugly weather that weekend too. I think that we ended up playing a doubleheader on Saturday, but it was a fun. The atmosphere there was really, really fun. And to all the college baseball fans, maybe haven't made a trip out there yet, that's a place that you get that kind of SEC environment with the people. What's it called? The jungle out in left field. Yeah, the jungle.
Yeah, and just the whole surrounding area is really cool. It was one of my favorite places to play at out of all my 4 years of college baseball.
But as far as Burley goes, Burley's someone after that tremendous sophomore season, he was up in the Cape for the Bourne Braves, and actually already had a walk-off single up there. And he's actually going to be headed down to Cary for the USA Baseball Collegiate team, so the third Pirate in 2 years to receive that invite.
Yeah, no, and he deserves every bit of that too. I mean, he just carries himself well on the field. He stands out from everybody else, like as far as a spectator's point of view. If you just sit back and just watch the guys and see who just makes the game come easy to him, you don't even have to know that he's a pitcher and a hitter. Like, you can just see him kind of like jogging around the field, taking ground balls between innings, throwing the ball around. Like, he's just a pure athlete. He's got a bright future, not only at East Carolina, but once he gets to pro ball as well.
I agree, Ben. There's an upside to him, and I think Bubba, it's exciting too. Is when you see him play, and even if you're not an East Carolina fan, you watch him play. It's very exciting when you love the game of baseball, and you see a guy like that. It took me back to being a little leaguer and a kid that's like on your team that plays every position. I mean, I think the guy like be a catcher. I think if you said we need you to go there and catch, he could do it. He's just like he has a lot of raw talent and potential, and there's a lot of upside to him.
No, yeah, absolutely.
In football, a lot of times you hear coaches refer to guys who are versatile like that can be a receiver and maybe plays a little bit on the defensive side as well, and then kickoff / punt return man. They'll refer to him as a Swiss Army knife, and that's the way Alec Burleson is. Because you look at his numbers, if a player had his numbers in any of the roles that he played, they would be happy. I mean, batting .370. 9 home runs and like 20, 21, 22, maybe more doubles.
371 batting average.
Drove in more than 60. Then he had 5 or 6 saves, but then he also had 6 wins, I believe it was, on the mound. So just remarkable numbers and a lot of different facets for Alec Burleson.
No, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, it's okay. I was just going to say when I remember the first regional game we had and having to wait a day, and it was just, oh my gosh, Quinnipiac was a good team, but obviously we're very disappointed. And I'm different, Ben. I like to sit out, even though I'm a member of the media. I have a credential and all that stuff, and the people at East Carolina treat me wonderfully, like a prince, a king. I like to sit out. The media probably thinks I'm crazy. I like to sit out with the crowd. I like to sit out there because, and that's a perfect example. That night, that 8th inning, Bubba was there. He comes in and he gets all the batters out. It's like bases loaded. We lost the game 5-4, but I tell you, that's one of the special moments I always remember about Alec Burleson is like ice in his veins. Like you're praying, is there some way, a miracle that he can get all these guys out? He does. We fell short that night. However, you just love to have that kid with the ball in his hand.
Oh no, absolutely, man. He came out there, and I was like, the only chance they have to win this game is to switch the momentum back around. He's got to get 3 outs and let a run score, and he did that. And I was like, like if I'm Quinnipiac, like I might as well just pack it in. There's no way you're winning this game now because they're about to put like an 8th spot up on you. But Quinnipiac was one of those teams that. They play up in the northeast, and not a lot of people hear about them all year.
Right.
But they kind of caught our attention, I would say, during the conference tournament week. And I was like, man, these guys are bigger than most northeastern schools. They have a little bit of swagger about them. They're not going to be intimidated by anybody. And I didn't think that they were going to beat East Carolina by any means, especially on the first game of the tournament. But what I knew that they were going to give some teams some trouble, and I was shocked at how well they still hung in there and beat East Carolina, but that might have been good for East Carolina because then they kind of it seemed like they were more focused the next day, and then the offense started clicking. They won like 4 straight games in 3 days.
35 hours. It was only 35 hours.
35 hours, and they won 4 games, and it wasn't even close. Like most of those games were blowouts. So I think it kind of straightened them up in the right path. And then, unfortunately, once they get to Louisville, it felt like everything they hit just was right at somebody. And they caught a couple tough breaks, but.
Well, I think
and then everything that Louisville put into play, vice versa.
I know.
They certainly hit some balls hard, but then they hit a lot that had eyes for sure.
Right.
And you look at the situation. I want to get your take, Ben, because you're an expert. You're a player. It feels like with Cliff Godwin with his team, obviously I'm a huge fan of Cliff Godwin when he played. He's a Pirate. He's a local guy from literally about 30 minutes from Greenville. He grew up close to Greenville. He's a Pirate. He had the coaching experience with recruiting and the whole 9 yards, being LSU, Vanderbilt. I mean, he's been everywhere. Then he comes back home, and it's been – I think that basically we've always had a good program, but I think that now with Cliff Godwin, he's taken it and has made a great program. And you look at it, he's the first coach, even though Coach LeClair unfortunately passed away. He would have been the first to have multiple super regionals, but he's the first coach in ECU history to have 2 super regionals. We only have 5, and he has 2 of them.
Right. No. You guys are definitely on the right track with Godwin. We actually, as 11.7, we dubbed him as the coach of the year, and I feel like he got robbed. just as Alec Burleson did because the Mike Martin story going on this year, which there's no way that, in my opinion, you can give Mike Martin the Coach of the Year for the roller coaster season that they had. And he's really not even, like, from what I understand and from the people I've talked to, Mike Martin hasn't coached that team in probably 10, 15 years. He's more of a figurehead, a motivator right before the games. I know Cliff Godwin gets right in there, right into the dirt with the kids and coaches them up, not only on the field but off the field as well. And as far as player development goes, and you guys can attest to that, every single one of the East Carolina superstars, they're not, 5-star recruits. They're not people that come right on campus and, oh my God, this guy's a dude. They develop, and credit to him. He's the one that, puts in the work with the assistant coaches, gets everything right. Everything is, straight in line for the players to succeed. They just have to follow this. And you see how every single year the players get better, they get bigger, they get stronger. And that stuff just doesn't happen without a leader of a head coach like Godwin. So the College World Series trip is coming soon, hopefully next season. East Carolina, it's tough to win the College World Series as a non-Power 5, but we've seen it done multiple times between Cal State Fullerton, Fresno State, Coastal Carolina. So the possibility is there. It's a lot easier than winning in football and basketball. So that's Cliff Godwin's got to be the best chance to get you guys a national championship.
Oh, there's no question about it. And you look at it, I think, with East Carolina, I've been telling people, it's been the most consistent program. If you look back all through the coaches, I don't think, really, Bubba, I can't remember in my lifetime, and maybe you can help me, Bubba, but I don't ever remember a quote-unquote, bad coach. We may have had coaches who made some bad decisions off the field or some things, but not as far as being a coach, we've always had a really good program, and that's why, like I was saying, I think it's going from good to great.
Yeah, we really have. You look back down through especially modern baseball history, this is going back to at least the 60s, if not before, to whenever the records were kept. So we have only had, I think it's 2 losing seasons, and there may have been a third in there in 2010 where we had to forfeit some games due to some off-the-field things under Billy Godwin. But as far as actually having a losing season, there were only 2, and one of those was back in the late 90s. And then the other one was back, I don't know, maybe in the 70s or something. So, yeah, our tradition has certainly been there when we hadn't had that breakthrough trip to Omaha. But like Dave was saying, whether you're talking about Dr. Gary Overton, who was the head coach from, I guess, 85 to 97, and Coach O is now the play-by-play on our radio network, play-by-play, color analyst on the radio network. And then you have Hal Baird prior to him, who went on to Auburn and coached the likes of Frank Thomas and others. And then you also have had, of course, Randy Mazey, who's doing such a good job now at West Virginia, and Coach LeClair, et cetera. So a lot of great coaches down through our history, like you would expect with our success.
And Ben, I was going to, one question I had to, speaking of coaches, I wanted to mention to you, one of the reasons I love your podcast and being college baseball, I want to get your take because you're a former player. When you mentioned Mike Martin, and when you mention coaches that are retiring, I think of Coach Scaff in UNCW retired this year. We've got a lot of guys that are older, seasoned coaches. The problem is we need to have young and up-and coaches. How can we get those young and up-and coaches if we can't allow a school to potentially hire a third assistant?
Yeah, man. This is probably the topic that gained us the most publicity because James and I both are just big figureheads for this third paid assistant. We think there's absolutely no reason why this should not be a thing. And more than just third paid assistant, there needs to be a fourth coach. And I'll tell you why. It's because there's a lot of clogging in the college baseball coaching carousel. And when I say that, it means that There's some outdated coaches out there that are, and like we've all been a part of it, where they kind of are just there because they've been there for 20 years, 15, 20 years, they've had success, and they have 2 assistants and then a volunteer, and there's no room for those assistants and volunteers to work their way up because they know that the head coach is going to be there for another 10, 15 years. And so whenever you have, 40 of these guys out of the 300 Division I schools, there's a lot of clogging going on. And then when, whenever the top 20 programs just keep rotating coaches, head coaches over and over again, who's going to pay them the most money? That's another, 30. So 70 of the 300 or a fourth of the schools, there's a 0% chance you're ever going to get a head coaching job there. Well, as a young guy like James and myself who wanted to be college coaches, the opportunity is just not really there. The only way you can get in is if you're a volunteer assistant coach. And a volunteer assistant coach will make maybe $2,000 to $5,000 a year running camps off the
right.
on Saturdays, and that's just not enough to live on. And so for young guys that see their other teammates going to make $50,000, $60,000 at a bank, or $45,000 coaching high school baseball and teaching classes there, they look at us and like, you want to be a volunteer assistant and make $2,000 a year and still live at your mom's house? And the answer most times or not is no. And so to get the young kids who are straight out of college into the game, paying them $20,000, even just $20,000, $15,000, $20,000, $30,000 a year, whatever that program can afford, that's what gets the young, inspired kids into the game, keeps them in the game, because they can do that for 2 or 3 years rather than just taking a chance on 1 year to see if they can get an assistant coaching job at a NAIA school in Idaho. And so it all starts at the top. Athletic directors who are buddy with the head coach, they know that nobody's going to take their job, and it kind of clogs everything and pushes everything back, 2 or 3 years. So we've got a lot of publicity for our takes on it. That it hopefully was all good publicity. But I know like Kendall Rogers and Aaron Fitt of D1 Baseball, they love chatting it up with us about the third paid assistant, because we had some rants on our podcast for sure. Just so sick and tired of hearing how conferences were just shooting it down.
And the great thing, and the thing that bothered me, Ben, was the fact that normally with the NCAA, it's like they're always the almighty and the powerful, and they have this big mandate, and I would feel sorry for schools, say, that can't afford a third assistant. There may be some out there. So the fact that they said they gave you the opportunity, and I can't remember the exact wording to hire, they didn't say you have to. That's what I thought was a no-brainer. That's the reason why I was so upset, because I realized there are some schools that maybe can't afford it, don't want to pay a third assistant. That's fine. But at East Carolina, we love our baseball. If you're in North Carolina, especially east of 995, and I know Bubba and your neck of the woods, even in the western part of the state, is huge, a baseball state, and we want to hire a third assistant.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. It's the NCAA was going to give these schools the option to pay a third coach. So most schools already have 3 or 4 coaches, but only it'd have been a fourth coach because it's third paid assistant. But yeah, it's just the option. And what happened was a lot of athletic directors kind of pulled the well, if I can't have it, you can't have it, and just declined it because of they wanted to save an extra $15,000 a year. And so it was kind of childish to see these schools be like, I don't want it, so you can't have it. I don't want to compete with my assistant coaches from, if I'm the athletic director of Michigan State baseball, where we don't really care about baseball, well, we have 2 really good paid assistants, and we don't want one of them to go take a third paid assistant job in the SEC. So we'll just be happy over here while everybody else suffers. And it was such a dumb, stupid thing to just sit back and watch this good plan just crumble right in front of our eyes.
Yeah, and Bubba, I know we want to talk College World Series in just a second. I just want to ask one final question to you, Ben, on this topic, and then we'll move on to a better thing. Do you think, and I want to get your, this is my gut feeling, and I could be wrong on this, and I'm not Mr. Conspiracy Theory, I swear I'm not. But do you think there's some people in the big Power 5 schools who they don't want to see baseball become big? Because where we are, I know for a fact that baseball is at least breaking even or making, I think it makes a little bit of a profit. And if we can continue to do what we're doing, it will definitely be a profit. Do you think there's some athletic directors like the athletic director of Texas, for example, came out against it? They've got more money. They could have 50 assistants. I don't know how many they allow, but they could afford a whole bunch of assistants. Do you think that there's they want to keep baseball down?
Yeah, I'm a big conspiracy theorist as well. I just love the different angles and stuff you can look at things. I think what happens is that the game of baseball, and college baseball especially, is athletic directors thinks it's perfect where it's at. You know, they don't lose too much money on it for most schools. Some schools break even, and then some schools, besides like the outliers like Mississippi State and, you know, some big SEC schools, some of them make a little bit of profit. And what they're scared of as a whole is that by, you know, making these big drastic changes in their eyes, that it could shift completely towards, you know, a net loss for a lot of schools. And I think you're absolutely right. And some of them see it as a disadvantage of starting the season in February because maybe the weather's bad, it's too cold, yada, yada, yada. But then a lot of people see it as a disadvantage going all the way to June because the kids are out of school, and are they really NCAA athletes by then? Are they, you know, if they're seniors, are they graduated? And then another thing is like the MLB draft lines up right in the, you know, middle of postseason play. So there's a lot of things that kind of poke it, you know, right on the boundary of, do we want this to happen or do we not want it to happen? So it's nothing's set in stone. You know, if you think about college football, I mean, you know, you're going to start in September and you're going to go until bowl season in December or January, whenever you make it. College basketball is we'll play from November to March, and then March Madness is our big tournament. College baseball is, you know, nobody talks about it until about April, and then all of a sudden conference tournaments, boom, 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 get them over with. Now let's move on to football season. So college baseball, I think, will always be third or fourth in the athletic director's eyes. It's just, you know, they don't want to take any chances because right now it's very consistent, and they can move on to football season a lot quicker. So,
Ben, one of the things I want to ask you about before we shifted to Omaha and CWS is having been a Division I baseball player at Mercer, you know what it's like to miss class time and then have to still fulfill those academic responsibilities. One of the impressive things that Coach Godwin and his staff have done with the Pirates is that's what record-setting GPAs, like I think this spring, for instance, it was like a 3.48 team GPA, which is just remarkable. So can you talk a little bit about that? I know with Mercer, y'all didn't travel quite as nationally as ECU does in the American, but I know you can still shed some good light on this.
For sure. So with missing class time, the biggest thing is just communication. If you can communicate with your teacher, and if you know a couple people in the class, you can get all the information. And especially in today's age, where the teachers end up posting, you know, their PowerPoints or their notes or videos online, so you have the access to do it. So I've seen players succeed, and I've seen players, you know, fail at this. You know, missing class time sounds like a cool thing, but if you don't actually do the work that you're missing, you can get in some big trouble. And the biggest thing is you just can't be lazy about it. You know, if it takes, you know, reading your textbook on the bus at midnight on your way back from, you know, Cary, North Carolina, then you got to do it. And, you know, the guys that get in trouble are the ones who think that missing class means, you know, it's kind of like the ostrich effect. If I, you know, put my head in the ground, I can't see you, you can't see me. One of those things. So class time, it's one of those things where if you just do it and, you know, communicate with people, you'll be fine. And it just takes discipline, you know, passed down from the coach to the players of, you guys know you're missing class, get everything you can before, and communicate with people after and make sure you didn't miss anything. So I guess Godwin does a really good job because a 3.48 team, not ERA, 3.48 team GPA is incredible.
Yeah, he
really is.
You know, Bubba, that was one of the things, Ben, that amazes me, and I will salute you and all the guys, is that I was not mature, and Bubba knows this, not mature when it comes to college or high school, for that matter. For my GPA is terrible, but I did barely graduated, but I graduated. But I can't imagine you guys with the very fact of all the travel, like Bubba was talking about, I mean, my dad was like, how many games did they play? I said, 56 regular season games. He's like, oh, my God. I mean, he knew it was way up there, but he didn't know it was 56 because he's like, it's a long season. And I was like, yeah, not to mention you have conference tournament, and then you have regional, super regional, College World Series. But that has always amazed me, and I always salute student athletes. And I think that's one thing that for me checks the box for the most is all these people say all the time, it's always negative, oh, there's no such thing as a student athlete, blah, 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 blah. But yet you guys in baseball, for example, a perfect example of that there is truly a student athlete.
Oh, for sure. And another good thing that, I mean, I didn't know too much of the football or basketball team, but a lot of the guys that play baseball at the collegiate level, they don't want to play pro ball. Like they're going to school to go, get their master's in business, or they want to go be an engineer somewhere. Like some of the smartest people I ever met were teammates of mine at Mercer, where I'm just like, oh wait, you guys don't want to play pro ball? And they're like, no, if we get drafted, we'll probably just turn it down. Like we want to go be a dentist, or we want to go. And so I think college baseball is a little bit different because not everybody's chasing that money because they know the grind of minor league baseball, and some of them just don't want to do it. They just want to move on with their career. So there are a lot of just plain student athletes, student coming first in college baseball, which is really cool to me.
Ben, shifting gears to this year's CWS, of course, taking place right now, right in the heart of things. A couple of the huge stories that have really captured the headlines are Michigan and Florida State, two of the last four teams in the tournament, both 3 seeds advancing to Omaha. And now you have the Wolverines under Eric Bakich, a former Pirate player and teammate of Cliff Godwin. He and Nick Schnabel, and both of those guys played for the Pirates back in the Keith LeClair era, and they're both donning 23 in the dugout there in Omaha, and they've had some tremendous starting pitching, and then you have Florida State, of course, in the final year of the Mike Martin era, and everything they've accomplished in the postseason. So can you talk about both of those stories?
Yeah, and what's really cool is the last 4 teams. They were 2 of the last 4 teams in. And at the time, the we felt like the committee got it wrong. We felt like neither one of those teams should be in the tournament. But they see some projections and matchups and stuff that they liked. And I'll start with Michigan. Eric Bakich is slowly becoming one of my favorite coaches in college baseball. Just by the way he carries himself, seems like a very likable guy. The interviews are great, and the way that he recruits is very unique to the rest of the college coaches because he's just looking for the best athletes that happen to play baseball across the whole United States. It doesn't matter if you're a high school kid, JUCO guy, D3, D2, whatever. He feels like he can make those athletes perform better on the baseball field. And honestly, I didn't get to watch too many of Michigan's baseball games this year. So once we got to the conference tournament when they were playing in Omaha, I saw how those guys kind of played and their approach to the game, and I was like, okay, like these guys are a lot better than I thought. Like they don't look like a typical Big Ten team. And so I think Bakich is about to find himself in a huge payday one of these days because the exposure he's getting, one of these power, SEC, ACC teams are going to scoop him up real quick. And then Florida State, on the other hand, kind of takes a different approach to recruiting. They're going after the biggest, baddest baseball players in mostly the Southeast. And if you look at it, Florida State as a whole is a much bigger, more physical team than the other seven teams in Omaha. And they have some hard-throwing guys out of the bullpen and all this stuff. But talking about offensive, when you get these big physical guys, you tend to have streaks of putting up 10-plus runs in a game and then, getting shut out or, held to 1 to 2 runs. So it's very inconsistent, and they've been a roller coaster all year. And the first 2 games of the College World Series, they win 1-0 against LSU. They squeaked out that run in the 8th or 9th inning, and then they get shut out by Michigan the next day. So Florida State looks like their time in Omaha is probably coming to an end because it's not the 10, 11, 12, 13 run team that was in the regionals and super regionals. So that's kind of my breakdown on those 2 teams, but they are both very fun to watch.
And then in the other winners bracket game, which was postponed from last night to today, and today being Wednesday, the 19th, as we're recording this, you'll of course have the conclusion of Auburn-Louisville an elimination matchup, and then Vandy and Mississippi State looking to advance to 2-0 and put themselves in the driver's seat in their bracket.
Yeah, I cannot express how excited I am for this Vanderbilt Mississippi State game. You get to see Kumar Rocker coming off of that 19 strikeout no-hitter last week, and then Peyton Plumlee, who's I believe a 5th-year senior, maybe a 4th-year senior, who I thought originally was going to be JT Ginn, the freshman of the year in the SEC for Mississippi State, but he's still battling some arm trouble. But Peyton Plumlee has been getting the job done. He's probably been one of the hotter pitchers in the nation coming into the start. So between Kumar Rocker and Peyton Plumlee, there's going to be probably maybe 2 or 3 hard hit balls all game, and it's just going to end up who's going to have those hard hit balls and if they're going to be timely hitting or not. So, and the fact that Mississippi State's even in this game is incredible because they were down 4-1 going into the 9th inning and had a couple lucky breaks with some Auburn errors that put them in the position that they are. Like, they could easily be facing elimination against Louisville, and now they're sitting in the driver's seat against Vanderbilt. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean, it really is, and obviously the Pirates found out how good Louisville is, and then like you said, with Vanderbilt kind of working in reverse, or talking a little bit more about the Vandy boys, as they like to call them. So it's kind of unique because in those 2 programs, not only are they in the SEC, but that is a matchup that occurred in last year's Super Regional when Mississippi State shocked the Commodores there in Nashville.
Oh yeah, and that was fun. That was fun to watch because Mississippi State was kind of like that Michigan or Florida State per se, where they were underdogs. I think they were actually one of the last 4 teams in last year. They were a 3 seed in the regional at Florida State, and they were one strike away from elimination there, where Elijah McNamee hit a 2 or 3 run homer against Drew Parrish, who just threw 8 shutout innings against. Let's see. I'm getting back. I need to backtrack. Here we go. So they were 1 strike away from elimination last year against Florida State, and Elijah McNamee hit that game-winning homer to send Florida State home, and then they ended up walking off Vanderbilt in the Super Regional. So they were kind of that team of destiny last year. Underdog, nobody saw where they would be. They didn't even have a head coach. They had the interim coach who steered the boat in the right direction to get to Chris Lamonis, who's there now. So this year's a little bit different. I think last year they were happy to be in Omaha. This year, no doubt, between Mangum and McNamee and guys like that, they're there to win the whole thing. So it's a totally different attitude for them this season.
And then were you a little surprised that Arkansas had such a quick showing in Omaha, and Dave Van Horn on such a tremendous job with that program and everything they have going for it? It just shows, and like Florida State having been 16 times and never having won it, just how hard it is to have success even once you get there.
Yeah, no, it did shock me. First of all, it shocked me that Texas Tech and Arkansas were playing in the 0-1 loser goes home game the next the 2 days after game 1. I thought both of those 2 teams were just going to take care of business against Michigan and Florida State and end up in a winner's bracket game to see who's in the driver's seat. But yeah, I mean, it's tough. Arkansas ended up getting shut out by Drew Parrish and J.C. Flowers of Florida State. and then had to come back against Texas Tech, who's probably one of the most fundamentally sound teams in the country. They're just very consistent, very composed team with Texas Tech. So Arkansas, they are definitely disappointed. I know their fans are disappointed. They showed, their anger on Twitter and Instagram and all that stuff. But it was a timing thing for Arkansas. They were playing their best baseball in, late March, early April, throughout May. But you can kind of see it in the SEC tournament where they had some struggles going on. They didn't play absolute perfect baseball in the regionals, even though they had a pretty favorable regional matchup, and then they ended up getting smacked by Ole Miss in one of the super regional games. So that was kind of a red flag. But if this College World Series would have been played when Arkansas was hot, I think they would have beaten everybody in this tournament by 5 to 10 runs.
So taking a look at the big picture now with all the remaining teams, as we said, you have Michigan at 2-0, and then you'll have either Vanderbilt or Mississippi State in the driver's seat on their side of the bracket at 2-0 after today's matchup. So who do you like to win it all?
Oh, okay. I think so. This is my projection. On the left side of the bracket, I think Texas Tech actually comes back, and I think they beat Florida State later today, and then I think they beat Michigan twice. They're the best team left in that side of the bracket, and it's really not that hard in the relative scheme of things to beat a team twice, because what happens is Michigan gets 4 days of rest between games, and meanwhile Texas Tech is seeing the ball every single day from a live arm, 4 times a day. So once you get, obviously you take some hits with your bullpen depth and starting pitching stuff, but if you think about it, Texas Tech's going to come back. If they win today against Florida State, they'll come back Friday, and they'll have Micah Dallas game 1 starter ready to go for redemption against Michigan. So, and then once you beat a team once, it kind of flips role. You have all the momentum in the world, and then Michigan kind of gets down on themselves. So I do think Texas Tech comes out of the losers bracket, similar to what Oregon State did last year. And then on the right side of the bracket, it's pretty safe to say that the winner of this Mississippi State-Vanderbilt game will find themselves in the finals. I think that Mississippi State has a little bit of team of destiny written on them this year, especially after the Auburn game 2 days ago. So I'm actually going to pick Mississippi State to win today, and I think they win the whole tournament. I think that Mississippi State has the senior leadership. They have the perfect mix of power, speed, contact, defense, and they kind of feel like the fit this season.
Ben, I wanted to ask you, Bubba and I, of course, follow ECU very closely, and now we're doing a podcast. So do you think the 2 best teams, Bubba, jump in on this because you're right there with me, I think the best 2 teams we saw all year, Mississippi State and UCLA.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, Louisville, of course, but I meant the regular season.
I think this season was very top-heavy, opposed to most seasons where, you see a couple, 2s and 3s and maybe even a 4 seed in super regionals and possibly Omaha. This season, and I've said it all year on my podcast, that I felt like there was about 15 teams that had a chance to win a national championship, but only like 4 to 6 that could really have a possibility of winning it. And James and I, from our podcast, we would stay up late and watch every single game and then podcast after. So we were up until 1, 2 a.m. On midweeks and Fridays and Sundays when we would do it. And the 3 best teams that we saw all season were UCLA, Mississippi State, and Vanderbilt. And we felt like one of those 3 teams were going to win it all. And props to Michigan for going to UCLA and taking care of business. But UCLA was one of those teams that if they got into the College World Series, they would be in the same position Michigan was in, sitting 2-0 because they do have the pitching depth. And I think they ended up having like 8 draft guys or something like that. So a lot of pro talent over there. But between Michigan, Vanderbilt, Mississippi State, we felt those were the 3 best teams by far. And then you had the next tier with the Texas Tech, Arkansas, Louisville, those type of teams. So that's why I think the winner of this Vanderbilt-Mississippi State game, they win the whole thing.
Now, Ben, will this be your initial trip to Omaha?
Oh, yeah. No, I've always wanted to go, but I was always too busy playing either school ball or summer ball, so I never got a chance to go because I'm only 2 years removed from college. So
right.
last season I was working for a summer Woodback collegiate team in the Coastal Plain League, and then this year I'm actually having a little bit of free time.
Which CPL team did you work for?
Yeah, I helped start up the Macon Bacon. So we were the newest team. Yeah, it's right in the same city as in Macon, Georgia, as Mercer was. And I was the third person hired. So there was the owner, the team president, and then me. I was the corporate marketing guy. So I had to go to every business in town and explain how we were going to be successful and how they could invest in us. And it was a really cool opportunity. I loved it.
That's cool. We actually had Shelby Hilliard, who's the director of media and content development for the CPL, and she's a Texas Tech alum. And so we had her on, and she talked about her experience not only with the CPL, but just how big of a fan she is of the Red Raiders and the year they've had, not only men's basketball and now baseball breaking through to Omaha once again.
Yeah, no, I got a chance to meet Shelby last year at the CPL All-Star Game. She's a very brilliant individual, very smart.
Yeah, and we also had Tyler Russell. We have a big I actually do multiple jobs, and one of the jobs I have is middays on Magic 95.9. We had Tyler Russell of the Eatonton Steamers. That team and the Wilson Tobbs are the two closest teams to me in the eastern part of the state. But anyway, Tyler was gracious to come on, and we're giving tickets away on our station it's actually tomorrow night for Thursday night's game. So we had both of them on, and it was tremendous. I love that league, and I think it's great to see it expanding, and love to see it in Hint, Greenville.
Yeah,
they want that market really bad.
No, absolutely. I think the CPL is a great league for all players, and not only players but the fans too. So I think they do a good job entertaining the fans. Between innings, and it's more than just a baseball game. It's kind of like I don't want to say performance because I feel like that's not the right word, but there's a lot going on, a lot of just community ties. They're not in these giant cities where you have to fight for parking and this and that. It's, you're inside of small little communities like, like Macon or, let's see, there's High Point and there's,
Gastonia.
Lexington County,
Ashboro.
There's just a lot of just very just big baseball towns, I guess you could say. Like the whole North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, a lot of baseball ties, and good opportunities in the summer for people to go out and watch a game and enjoy some of the best college talent in the world.
Yeah, it's actually even was kind of, in my opinion, is very much like the minor leagues as far as, like you're saying, that those communities where baseball's big and there's enough support to actually support it, but that at the same time, it's not like your major league markets. Right.
Yeah. And the good thing is, like, they get the community tied in well with the host families and things of that nature, where you don't have to pay players. All you have to do is just put them in a pretty nice house that gets 3 meals a day or 1 meal a day, depending on their schedule, and they build some relationships with those host families for a lifetime. Like, I know a lot of my friends still talk to their host families today, so it's just good for the community. It's something fun to do on summer nights.
Yeah, Ben, you've certainly been very generous with your time.
Yeah.
We really appreciate it. But before we let you go, can you plug all your content where everybody can follow you on social media? And because I know your podcast from the get-go, you were receiving right around 500 downloads, and now I know you're up over 1,000. So excellent show. I really encourage the college baseball fans out there to listen.
Yeah, no, we have an episode coming out tonight. You guys can find us. I mean, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook. It's just the number 11, so 11, and then POINT, spell out the word point, and then the number 7. So just representing the number of scholarships allotted to Division I baseball programs, and just kind of want to make a little, ironic tie into that. And it's they have a show coming out. I think it's Wednesday nights, Friday nights, and Sunday nights. So But yeah, guys, no, I really appreciate you guys having me on. This was a lot of fun. If you guys ever want me back on, just let me know. And if you guys ever make your way down to Macon, Georgia, just let me know. I'll host you guys well.
That sounds like a fun. We have a friend of ours, Terry Gallagher, that listens to this podcast. He's in your neck of the woods, so we'll have to let him know that you're close by. He's a former East Carolina letter winner, great wide receiver back in the 70s, and really proud of him. And eventually he's going to move up to Wilmington, to North Carolina, but he's getting the house ready to be sold right now, so he listens to our podcast to take a break.
Cool. No, that's awesome. I'd love to connect with him.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Ben, for coming on, and we appreciate it. And good luck with the podcast. We're big fans of it, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Perfect. Thanks, guys.
All right. Thank you very much, Ben. Wow. We were talking so long to him. I hope that he'll definitely come. He said he would come back on, so I enjoyed talking to him. He was so easy to talk to and so much fun. We didn't realize how long we were going to talk to him, but hey, that's what makes podcasts. We were talking to him a lot about podcasts, but we don't have a general manager and owner. The three guys are on this podcast. We own the podcast, so to speak. So we get to make the decisions on our guests and the creativity and all the stuff we're doing, and not trying to knock any of the other media. I'm just saying that that's what makes podcasting a lot of fun, is we get to call the shots. And the first for me, I don't know about you, Bubba, but as far as a business, and that's something that we strive to do. And as the podcast continues to grow, we have a lot of people that are already interested. We're working hard on sound production and different things to make it better. And we basically had to start from nothing, literally nothing. The name of that podcast and the guests, the content, that we had to build everything from scratch. So I want to let listeners know that things are better in 2019. We've already made a lot of announcements. And Bubba, did you want to add to some content coming up and maybe promotions? Oh, one more thing before I'll pitch it to you. Don't forget, folks, if you want to, if you're in the Edenton area, Greenville, anywhere in Eastern North Carolina, road trip, we have those free tickets. They've got some tickets left at the radio station at Magic 95.9. If you want to go to that Steamers game, our previous podcast, we talked a lot about that. Peninsula Pilots will be Thursday night, the 20th, 7:05 first pitch. Magic tickets at yahoo.com. I want to mention that again. Last push, last call, if you will. Magic tickets at yahoo.com. They've got some tickets left, so go ahead and email them and let Bill Benjamin at the radio station know. Magic tickets at yahoo.com. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'll be there, and Bill Benjamin will be there from the radio staff, and you'll get a chance to meet us, and we'll see some great CPL. Shout out to Tyler Russell and Shelby Hilliard as well. They were awesome on our previous podcast, and they've been promoting our podcast and the event for tomorrow night, so I want to give them a shout-out as well.
Yeah, a lot of our listeners are from Pirate Nation, but then we also have some of those that are non-Pirates, which is great. Because we certainly have a lot of non-East Carolina topics that we cover as well. And some of those things we have coming up on future shows, and we'll be catching up with the play-by-play voice of the App State Mountaineers, Adam Witten. Adam's a guy that does an excellent job. He's also through IMG like Corey Glore, or Learfield IMG College, I should say. So Adam, he joined the show prior to last season. Looking forward to having him back and talking about the transition from Scott Satterfield to Elijah Drinkowitz up in Boone, because that program is one that's had a very significant amount of success here in recent years. They've won 4 bowl games, won I think it's 3 Sun Belt titles. So see how the Mountaineers plan to keep things rolling under Elijah Drinkowitz in 2019. We'll also catch up with Peter Burns from the SEC Network to talk, of course, about the SEC, but also the national landscape, and we'll talk about Mike Houston and the new regime at ECU. And so that'll be fun to talk a little Pirate football and other things with Peter Burns of the SEC Network. And then last but certainly not least, we'll catch up with Brian Christopherson from Husker 24/7. And so he covers Nebraska on a regular basis. He's Nebraska's Stephen Igo, if you will, or Sam Anderson. And so we'll catch up with Brian and take a ride on the Nebraska hype train as we're heading into year 2 of Scott Frost. So we'll get some perspective from a guy out there in Lincoln with boots on the ground.
it's going to be great. Scott Frost, I've always admired and respected. Glad he's going back to his alma mater. Very interesting thing. I think they're going to do very well this year. Can't wait to talk to him. And Bubba, we got a couple minutes left. I know really quickly. We got a lot of great things coming up. We're going to make the announcement about the cruise. We're working on final details. I should be able to make the announcement soon. If you don't know what I'm talking about, we have a pirate cruise next year. More than likely, it's going to be in July, as we know that there's a lot of stuff in August with football and everything and people going back to school. It's going to be July. It's going to be 4 or 5 days from Charleston to the Bahamas. We know that. If you're a pirate fan, if you've never been on a cruise, even if you're not a pirate fan, we have people that are going to be going. They're already interested. They don't care about East Carolina. That's fine. They're family and friends. They want to go on the cruise. Bubba, I'm hoping you can go and Kyle can go and the families. That would be interesting for our kids to be able to hang out and have fun. But anyway, I'm very excited about that. My Dana Shrink, my travel agent from Dana's Global Travel, she's putting everything together, and she's trying really hard to put all the details together and try to get it as affordable as we can. So that's what the holdup was been on that, and we'll be able to announce that pretty soon.
Yeah, looking forward to that, and hopefully my schedule will allow. And then also we have, of course, 50 Pirates in 50 Days. That SoundCloud exclusive feature will be coming up July 12th through August 30th. And then in addition to that, a week later on July 19th probably, we'll be kicking off our Friday morning football, where we'll talk a variety of football topics, high school, college, and professional. So really look forward to that. We'll have some very intriguing guests of both local and regional and national interest. So looking forward to that at Giddy Up Coffee House there in Williamston. And then they also have the location in Washington as well.
That's right. We have a lot of great friends like Pirate Owl and different ones in Washington. Please go support them. They've been very good to us, as we will be in them. I've been a patron since they've been open. That location was an old KFC, and Laura Lynn, she actually, the owner, was doing very well in Washington. And what was funny is she actually, we'll talk about that. Hopefully we can get her on the podcast. She's more behind the scenes kind of person, so we'll see. But they literally had a lot of people. I heard her talking. She talked to me about it, and some other customers. What happened was with a lot of people from Williamston going to her coffee house in Washington, and she's from what's called Farm Life. It's a kind of like a suburb, quote, of Williamston, if there's such a thing, and out in the country. And she and her husband live out there, and a lot of people it's about 6 miles outside of Williamston, in between Williamston and Washington. People were driving like 16 miles for coffee, coming back. She's like, what the heck? If they're going to be doing that, let's find a place. She found a place in Williamston. It's an old KFC for people that have been around the area for a long time. And I'm so excited about that. That's going to be a huge project for us, but it's going to be challenging for many different reasons, but very rewarding. We've got a lot of people behind the scenes that are already excited about it, that are guests that are going to be lined up, ready to go. I'll just put it like that. Plus, Bubba, I know we have another big project. We have a lot of busy summer, the Sports Objective Watch Party.
Yeah, with the Sports Objective Watch Party, we'll take a look back at I guess probably 5 or 6 different East Carolina games from down through the years. For instance, the 1995 Liberty Bowl, game that I was watching a little bit of the other day. And we'll catch up with former players from those games like Marcus Crandall, Mark Libiano, Jairus McPhail, and get their perspective on those games, kind of the mindset going in, and then their perspective on some of the plays that took place in those games that helped sway it the Pirates' favor. Of course, that specific Liberty Bowl was a 1913 win where you had Chad Holcomb knock in 4 field goals and then a big pick 6 by Darren Hart.
And that was amazing. Yeah, that was awesome, and we look forward to it. Bubba, before you go, do we have any final things? I know, where can people reach us on social media?
Yeah, I think we've pretty much plugged everything we have coming up as far as our content. But, yeah, give us a follow on Twitter at TheSportsOBJ, on Instagram at The Sports Objective. Like and follow us on Facebook, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, as all of our podcasts are now available on YouTube.
All right, Bubba, appreciate you, buddy, very much. I want to thank Ben Upton from 11.7 podcast, the college baseball podcast. Audrey LeClair is so awesome. Appreciate you, Audrey, very much, and hopefully we can have her back on in a few days with a very special guest and get Kyle back on. Bubba, thank you so much for all of us here at the Sports Objective. This is Dave Richmond. We'll see you next time. You've been listening to the Sports Objective Podcast.
You've been listening to the Sports Objective Podcast. Join us next time as the guys will be objective, and the objective is sports.